There we go. Hey, Derek.
Hey, Michelle.
How's it going?
Hey, everybody out there in internet land. It's going well. We are here at the YMCA, beautiful view in our own little private room. You take a look and everybody can see. We got our project all set up, great space, it's a nice day. We're ready to roll. So how should we start, Michelle?
Well, firstly, explain why we're here. What are we doing?
All right, so why we're here. So first off, we are showcasing an example of a really cool Microsoft and Fair Chance Learning Make Change project, which is basically, the best way to describe it is to use STEM-based skills to create a positive change in the world for what we're doing, and how students can go about making a sample one of those and provide some real life context. And a lot of times people are still reaching out to me, it's really cool, I want to do this, but how do I actually do that? And what does one of those look like? So we thought it'd be a really cool idea just to showcase one today using a drone and something else. So do you mind if we just walk through and just take a look at it?
Yeah, can I get you to actually say what's the prize and how do you submit?
The prize, okay, so if I get any of these wrong, forgive me guys. If you win, so if you put in this submission, it's pretty crazy. You basically get a unlimited, untapped makerspace. So it will literally transform your classroom landscape 100% when you actually do this, which is amazing. So that's the prize if you submit. You can actually check it out. It is online. All the details are there. We just recently posted on our Twitter. I know you can check out the Microsoft page as well. There's just a ton of different information on there. And then should we showcase now what we're going to do?
Let's do it.
I'm just getting excited just to get to this part and show what it actually looks like. Okay. So guys, Michelle will probably just show what we're actually doing here. So we have a map, a world map on the ground. And you'll see a lot of different colored LEDs and all these strings for lines, and I'm going to go over what that all means. We also have these little cubes of which represents food blocks.
And what are those cubes?
Yeah, those are cubes. So
No,
they're
are they foam? Are they?
Oh yeah, they're little foam blocks. I didn't 3D print them. I should have done that. That would have been a good plan. Now we do have these other questions and stuff around as well. So you can see all these little questions, and sometimes it has a monetary figure on there. And I'm going to explain why those things are there. So really, this project, what it's going to do is students often ask when a natural disaster occurs, and this year there were a lot of hurricanes and things like that. That we wanted to make a positive change and create that empathy piece for these students. But students always just say hey, Mr. T, why don't we just send supplies all over the place? No problem. But there's a cost associated to doing all those things. So we wanted to show them how can we do a direct impact of bringing supplies and disaster relief to another country in need. So what we're going to do is replicate this experiment using a drone and those food blocks and taking it to another place. Now, if I get Michelle to come back,
on my way.
What we'll do is just highlight. So we do have some relationships starting from where we are in Ontario right now, and that's where we're filming from. But we wanted to go down to Mexico, and then you get into Belize. We go all the way across into Europe, where we get to France and Spain and different elements that have happened there. All the way over to China, India. We're well represented in here. Now, of course, there's a lot of other natural disasters that have gone on, but we just wanted to focus on some of the major detrimental ones, and you can extend this to whatever you want to do and whichever ones really impact you and your students. These are ones that would really impact mine. And notice if you do look at these line segments, in terms of integrating into math, you can see these lines create a lot of angular relationships that you can go over, and also transversals where you can get into C pattern and F patterns and Z patterns and how these all interact together. Beyond that, you can start getting into population size and how much food do we actually have to bring to these groups in order to make a positive impact. Because they've created so much damage in millions and billions of dollars, so we have to consider how many people are actually in those living zones, which then relates to rate and ratio. How many kilometers or miles are they actually traveling by going to these? What is the most efficient route of getting to this given location? What's the total cost in terms of kilometers to break it down? So what we're trying to do is get our students to think linking to like meaningful, authentic tasks and context to help someone else, And fuel consideration, things that are really meaningful, especially with using a drone. This is one of the fastest growing occupations in the world today. And we want them to develop skills by coding their drone to actually do all these functions. So it's heavily integrated, and you can take this any which direction. One of the things I want to mention too is, Michelle, before we were starting filming this, like, Derek, super cool, looks really good. But what happens if we don't have a drone? Like, can I still do this? And the answer is yes. You could do this with just any map. You could actually have your students draw out a map to bring your mapping units to life. And then you could just use Sphero or Ozobot to go over top that. And even if you didn't have string or LEDs, you could use something called like mirror lighting. And I'll get into what that actually means, where you actually track where your Sphero goes. You use any device really, and you can track using this, like it'll represent a type of like light over top of where you went on the map. And then you can calculate and have students investigate and add student voice on top of what they're doing, which is super cool.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, honestly, you're just really bound by your imagination of what you want to do. And that's what I really want to empower them to do, what they want to do. And it really provides a real life context when they feel like they're going to a place and they're traveling with their drone and actually flying there to see it. So, Michelle, do you mind if I do a live demo now?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to grab my drone. I'm going to move over, and I'm going to set it up. Hopefully it's good to go. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, which is really cool. So the drone has a built-in camera on the bottom of it. So we can take topographical photos of where we're going atop above this map, and then examine those mathematical relationships in the middle as well, and then relate them in terms of distance, time, and speed. And you can really get into that like design thinking, computational thinking element within the coding realm as well. So there's a lot of things happening. So you can see that I have this block which represents like an element of food for like how many given people you can create, how much this represents, and like because they can only carry so much over. So this is a really like great lesson in terms of like economics of supply and demand and what's available for use. So I'm going to place that in there, and I'm going to get my drone to see if it can pick it up.
And what kind of drone is this?
So this is a Parrot drone, which is like relatively inexpensive, and it's like pretty safe too in terms of usage, and student friendly in terms of like the coding language and everything that you want to use. And there's free app downloads for how you can actually program this, which really helps for a lot of people, and you can get it on like again multiple devices. So I'm going to take off and get ready here because this will be interesting.
Can we do the grab again?
Yeah. Let's ungrab.
Yeah.
So you can grab. You can actually also like shoot items and
That's
do different like options. And it's not necessarily like meaning like it's a toy. It just means to shoot at like targets. But we're just going to do like try to do a landing, maybe a drop today, and just see how we're going to do it. And again, this is not to be perfect. Like this is a skill of like actually coding your drone, learning to actually fly it. Again, because this is an actual job that people are applying for. So it's building on those 21st century learning skills that we want to like teach our students. So I'm going to try to take off just because I just can't wait to just press this button and get going. Oh boy, when you hear that noise, students are saying, I don't want to hit myself here either by doing this. So we're going to try to go to Ontario. We're going to try to see if we can get to like close to Ontario. You're going to see our map kind of go. And we're just going slow. Oh, that's a pretty, wow. Michelle, I'd say that's pretty close to Ontario.
That's right on top.
And look at that, okay. So now we want to like replicate bringing food from Ontario to somewhere else in need. So just for like argument's sake, I know we're trying to get to China. I might try to drop it somewhere in Russia, and then we can examine where we actually went with it. So I'm going to take off, and I would program this to go somewhere close to Russia. I'm going to try to drop this a little bit and go forward ever so slowly, getting oh, you know what? Closer to China, like there's like wind elements, and so now I would actually release the food.
And look how close you got it to that.
Yeah, and so I'm
LED.
actually replicating what it's like and showing that these like conditions aren't perfect and there's a lot of things that go on. And then I would want to calculate what's my best path of going back, or if I'm carrying more than one load of food, where's the most efficient solution? Is it to go all the way back to Ontario, drop that off? Like what's the cost of doing that? Versus what would the cost be of just taking this food, having a secondary one, and dropping it off in Europe where they were hit, and then maybe on the way back to Mexico and North America, instead of going back and forth, and that's where that design thinking process really kind of comes to life. and you see like all the damages in it, like it really creates a different piece when like you can reach out and like think of, put yourself in someone else's shoes of what they might be going through at that point in time. So there's a ton of like STEM skills being used here. I mean, you've got computational thinking and design thinking, just even in terms of the coding alone, of how much, like how like this would get to go there. Another thing that I didn't really mention is you'll notice that all these destinations are illuminated with lights, so you can actually get into circuitry of how these are lighting up with anode versus cathode. What type of battery do we have to use to power these? Is there a more sustainable solution to doing this? And beyond that, you could do like copper tape, run it along the back. There is a plethora of extensions that you can add to make this work for your given classroom and your students, ranging from whatever grade. So you can do this in any grade and just maybe modify those extensions that you want. And again, just going over like all the angular relationships in math, time and distance, and how what you choose to do with it is entirely up to you. But we just wanted to showcase something that would work for us within the project. And these are things that they're looking for within this realm. So really cool. You can get into mapping and legends and how far we're actually traveling. And again, those population sizes, cost of traveling, everything that you want. It's a really fully integrated, encompassing project, and that's like what we're really striving for, and how you can make a positive change for others, and in this case, helping those out in need that really truly need something. But yeah, Michelle, what else we got? What else?
Are there any significance to the colors?
Yeah, so the colors. So well, you know what? There are. I wanted to try to keep like it consistent, just in terms of location. But then I was like, from this point, I was fixating to each given point. So for example, what I really mean by there, I didn't explain it well, is from green, I want to go from this like natural disaster, what it would take if my route was chosen to go from this point to Europe. And then really what I'm doing is I'm creating this like transversal here by doing that in terms of math. So it was kind of twofold. One, what's like this route, what does that really mean? How far am I actually going? And two, what would it mean if I like went to this point and came back? Like, what is the angle that I'm taking? What is the distance that I have to go in case I need to go back now? Is it more efficient to go here and back, or should I go all the way to Europe and then continue and go across? So it really puts that math and that meaningful element. So I did that again, where I went to the next point and I went to each disaster stop from that given color. So I did kind of the same thing from the other ones, where we're sitting here in Ontario and everything seems great. Well, what happens if we have to go provide relief here, or then go to China? I wanted to go to those given places as well, and that's what the colors kind of represent. And then this one is kind of like reverse engineering. We're going from Ontario all the way across to Singapore, and then we're going back to Europe, and we just have a kind of a tangled web there, but it's meant to be more efficient.
Like a flight path. That's cool.
Yeah, it really is. And like you get to see like a ton of different things, and anybody who like wants to, maybe has an interest in aviation, may take this in different things that I haven't done. And you can start talking about altitude and different elements and weather and what other like things come into play. So it's really like impressive of like what you can end up doing and what your students will really do. They'll come up with things that we probably haven't considered, and that's like the most specific like intangible element that I get excited for, is when they do something that I wasn't really expecting. So, but yeah, that's kind of like the fun of it. And then, I mean, honestly, who doesn't want to try to pilot a drone too? It's pretty cool just to even hear the noise when it like takes off. And we didn't actually lose a lot of things here, so you're probably wondering like, this drone's doing a really good job of keeping things under control and like things aren't blowing away. Well, truth be told, Michelle and I did actually take these blocks and things down. So normally the first time we did this, everything went blowing all over the place, and we want to provide you with like an authentic experience that like in the classroom that will happen. So we take down the coin cell batteries, the LEDs, the string, everything that you see is really taped down, because if we don't and we remove some of the tape, well, we'll try to take some of these things off, you'll see kind of what happens. And it's not gonna work too well, and everything's gonna go flying and go against the wall. So that's just one thing that we wanted to do in case this is something that you're interested in doing in your room. A lot of the drones too are safe, they're economical, and we can provide you with like ones if you're looking for that, or other options if you don't have a drone with you. I'm trying to think what else. Michelle, what other things do we have?
I had a question about the numbers you have here.
Okay.
So how would this work?
Okay, so in terms of when you see like Harvey, that's the damage that was done in millions just from one of the updates that I got from like the same site. So you're looking at 198 million in terms of damages for Hurricane Harvey. Then when you go to Maria and Irma, you see the damage that was inflicted there, which is like beyond like really comprehension and measure. And then that just shows the students again to kind of push forward in what we actually need to do to make this viable. And they can really start to like empathize with like who's being impacted in sheer numbers, and try to put it in perspective of what happens if this happened in your backyard, and how would you want people in another place to react. And it really like resonates with them when they can see that quantitative measure that's like listed there. So that's the reason for even putting it there. I feel like the number kind of stands out. You kind of, when you relate it back to yourself, it kind of just makes you want to push forward and like create a positive change and truly like make change for someone else, stepping out beyond yourself and outside your comfort zone, really, so to speak. And yeah, any other questions? We have live questions.
All right, if you guys want to ask Derek some questions, now's your chance.
Or Michelle. Anybody wants to ask questions, we are open. We would love questions. If not, I'm still going to fly my drone regardless. I should actually take a photo while doing it. So if I was going to do this too, I would like raise it, try to get like the best possible location I can, and then I'm going to, maybe we can show it later. I'm going to try to get over top, and then I'm going to take a photo. And now it's actually taking a photo of my surroundings of where I am. And you can actually do video as well. And you can track where you've gone. And I'm going to see if this is stored. So I'm going to land this. Oops. I'm going to land this. And the landing's relatively easy for anybody who's looking. And then I'm going to see if this actually saved. Let's see if we might have. Oh, view. Let's see. I might have it in there. I don't know if it took a photo. I think it was like still going through. You can take a photo and actually see it, which is really neat to add as well. So there's just like a secondary element, and then it's just like a point of conversation where you could actually add student voice. We're posting that photo and having them make something either interactive, like an interactive map, and then having them like code their experience, like on their voice onto it, where their journey is, and justify their reasoning of why they went there. Because it really is difficult to assess or track student thinking. You don't know what they're thinking when they're like moving this drone around. But if you actually have them reflect and code their answers onto like an interactive element, you could use the same map and just add something like copper tape, and then use something like a coding platform like Scratch, and track what they were thinking while they were doing something, while watching back a video or having an image of what they've done, which is really powerful.
Awesome. All right, so we don't have any questions. We can wrap it up unless you have anything else you wanted to show them or expand upon.
Yeah, no, you guys, if you don't have any questions, I think for us, we're good here. We just wanted to show you one example, but please make this your own. So one of the things I was sharing with Michelle that we're working on now is something like really cool where, again, you don't have a drone, but you have something else and you want to utilize multiple platforms. So what you could do is something like using a Sphero or a different type of robot, 3D printing like making a hovercraft out of it, and then coating it in water. So instead of going by just flight, you can actually add in that transport like via boat. And you can use the water as a mechanism, which would teach a whole different type of thing that you're doing. And you can go into water systems, so where you might run into bottlenecks and potential pitfalls. And then you're getting into 3D design elements into your projects. And that are all things that they're looking for, especially because in some of these they're either giving out a 3D printer and they're using all these tools. So the more tools that you can show, I think the better. That's a little hint.
Okay, so can you just wrap it up by reminding them where they can submit and what we're doing here today?
Yeah, so again, thank you for listening to everybody out there and watching. This is part of the Make Change contest, using STEM-based skills in a meaningful way in order to make a positive change in the world, and making those fully utilized skills. You can check it out on the Microsoft webpage. It's also on all forms of social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. What's the hashtag again, Michelle?
Hashtag STEM4 change.
STEM4 change. So if you like something you saw here today, please feel free to use that hashtag. Did I forget anything?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right, I think we're covered. Thanks for watching, everybody. Reach out if you need anything.